So, reincarnation. How does it work? Why does it exist? And what's the process? So, I'm going to have to draw a few things. We're going to start with a representation of the soul as a circle. We're going to put the little divine spark inside. And then, like we had last time, we're going to use a pyramid to describe the layers. Now, keep in mind, layers are not probably the best way to describe this. But it's probably the only way. And I know some people have brought up the idea of the universe being an onion, or the soul, the layers of the soul being an onion, in the sense that it goes deep, all the way in, layers upon layers. But this is probably not the most easy way to understand. I think the best way to understand is just to do the old pyramid shape with the light at the top, as has been for tens of thousands of years, the way you describe these things. So, of course, once again, we have the physical, or we'll call them now the shared worlds. Okay. And it's not, maybe shared is maybe not the proper, but places where change and death and the effects of other people can be felt. And then we'll refer to these other layers as not immortal, because that's not the right term, but maybe inner. So we'll call this the border, a border area, and this is an inner. Inner. I don't like how I drew that. Now, anyway, so in the inner world, this is essentially the location which is fully encapsulated by the soul. It's not shared with anyone else. You can draw on it and express it through the shared world as an expression of form, but it's entirely your own. Nothing else but you exists in here, and nothing else but you can exist in here. This is isolation, and it is also the closest thing to the divine that we have as a piece of ourselves. The divine spark itself is like consciousness. It is like an innate thing through which life flows. It does not, normal logic, reason, and structures do not apply. It is irrational. So up here we have the irrational. Let's try this. Okay. So at the top there's the irrational. We'll just say the divine. And down the bottom we have the rational, or the structured world. Okay. Now, you can imagine that in this shared world, in the physical world, there's a physical body. So you have a body here. This is the body. And then, in the spiritual realms, you have a spirit, which is essentially a spiritual body. And there is a etheric, I think is what they call it, body that links the two. And then the spirit, okay, is form, which is a projection. So it's a projection. So this, okay, is a projection of the inner world. So it's not fundamentally real. The energy that makes it up is fundamentally real, but it is just energy that takes shape. It is a projection of the inner world and projections of the inner world are essentially it's shapeless. So they're formless, shapeless, shape-shifting even. Pieces of yourself, okay, that cross the barrier from the inner world. The energy moves from the inner world across into this sort of spiritual world as a projection of self. Now, inside the shared worlds, we are objective, so we'll say objective. And in the inner worlds, we are subjective, meaning we have full control of our expression in the inner world. And as you descend from subjective to objective, we begin to lose control. So as you get deeper into the objective shared world, such as the physical, the soul begins to lose its control over how it expresses itself. And so, due to the fact that in the shared world, there is not a projection or an expression of the etheric body or a spiritual body, the soul must seek out a body to incarnate in, okay, for the purposes of expressing itself. And so spirit and the divine are in a constant struggle with nature to procure a form capable of handling consciousness. And we call that a brain, okay? A physical body, human body. But it's important to note that souls are not necessarily human. That is not the entirety of their identity. Souls are a vessel of the divine which has gained expression, self-expression, and self-understanding, and has become an individual. Okay, and this is how the world is embodied. This is how the divine, the universe is embodied, is in individuals. Okay, now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time explaining the structure of reality and how it all plays together. The previous video is for that. Go there if you would prefer an understanding of that. So why is it, if we understand these things, why is it that when people incarnate into a body, they lose the memories of their past lives? Okay. And they don't, let's put it this way, they don't completely lose them, but they lose them in a tangible form. So let's consider what it means to incarnate. Okay, so the most important thing to understand is that these etheric and physical bodies, these are not innate, okay? They are acquired, okay? Acquired. And the reason that they are acquired is because one cannot contain a physical body in the inner world. In the inner world, it is a subjective world. It does not have atoms. So to participate in the physical world, one must either manifest a body, which is temporary, and we can talk about that later when I talk about astral projection, or one must acquire a body. And this is done through incarnation. So how would a soul go about acquiring a body for incarnation? Well, one must first acquire an etheric body that is capable of interacting with the physical, okay? The physical body, which is a human body, let's say, for this example, because this is the easiest and most relatable. And so the etheric body must be of the proper form so that it will map onto the physical body in a way that is correct, and so that, you know, the spirit is wired into the brain in the way that, you know, so that consciousness is experienced. And so you must understand that that is not something which is automatic. Some people think this is just automatic. This is not something that's automatic. The etheric body is the bortor, or the go-between. It is a connecting piece between two diametrically different matter. Like they are of fundamentally different matter. In the subjective world where the energy is stored, okay? So all the information about the person, so in this inner world up here, this is where all the information is stored about the person. That is not stored down here, okay? Because at this part of the process, we are talking about a soul. So I'll put a little symbol for a soul here. Okay, so this soul must first acquire an etheric body. Okay, so we'll just like give a little wispy, okay, yeah, a little wispy person, little gingerbread man. And to get your little gingerbread man into an actual physical body, and we'll just do a little stick figure because I am not that great at art, so stick figure it is. Okay, so one must first acquire, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself because I'm trying to make sure that I'm not losing information, since this is kind of a detailed sort of process. So in order to acquire an etheric body, you're not like going to a shop to buy one. That's not how this works, okay? You are lowering energy down from the subjective world. So we'll do a little diagram over here. You are lowering the energy down from the subjective world up here into the border region or the spiritual world. And then this is being acquired here. Okay, so these two are linked. And then as soon as it is formed, it is then being placed again, lowered, its connection is lowered, into the physical. So that is where this happens. Okay. What does this mean? What this means is up here is your information. It's in the subjective world. It's in the inner world. When you acquire a etheric body and you incarnate into and are born a child, you do not have the information accessible to you because it is up here. It's up here, not down here. Okay? So a long process must be endured throughout one's lifetime where this is reconnected, where instead of coming down into the world, you must ascend and go back up in order to remember. And there is some exceptions to this. For instance, when someone is born and they are a child and their brain is still developing, their body is still developing, this is a thing which is happening over time. This connection is happening. It's not an instant thing. It is something that grows over time. And for a time, this etheric body is larger and unable to fully integrate with the child because the child is small and growing and its brain is changing. And during this period of about, I think it's 5 to 8 years, the child can remember their past lives to some degree. Especially if it was, especially if they are well developed spiritually, or if it was a traumatic death. Something where the information around their past life would have been important. Okay, so in order to sort of recap and make this simple to understand, the divine descends down into the world and forgets. And the reason why it forgets is because the information, this stuff, is up here. This is where you keep it. And the reason you keep it up here, okay, in this subjective world, is because it's safe there. It's inaccessible to other people. And it's inaccessible to spirits. It's inaccessible to anyone in the objective world. Which means it's protected. It is something that only you have access to, and because it is you, it is part of you. So in order to regain this information about yourself, all the things you did, and all the random stuff that made up your life, you must reascend back from the lower plane, spiritually speaking, and rebuild the connection from the physical world, which is often tied to the root chakra, through all the chakras in the spine. Let's see, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, crown. And then a sort of a flow of information is established and memories come back to you. Okay? That does not mean that it is a on-off switch where if you do this properly, you will suddenly remember everything. Your mind is very good at, and you and your soul are very good at filtering out things you do not need. It tends to just be things that you need. And also, this connection is never going to be perfect while you're in the physical body. So understand that this is complicated. But this is essentially how it works. Now, the question may be, okay, why incarnate? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you want to build this subjective world into a real place. Okay? You want to become a real boy. You're like Pinocchio. All right? And the truth is that because you have to commit a certain amount of energy down here to incarnate by forming an etheric body, that means you have lowered your energy, which means that you have spent it. It has become spent on an etheric body and spent on an incarnation. And that needs to be restored, because if you burn through all of your energy, okay, and this is not something that applies to souls that have matured. This applies to mortal souls who do not have access yet to the sort of endless energy that exists in the divine. For them, it is important that they incarnate in order to essentially refill their soul with life, because they're mortal. So those that have achieved enlightenment don't have to do this, because the quality has shifted. Now, keep in mind, even the Buddhists believed that when ascending to the highest heaven, there was still a limit to it, that it did not go on forever. And I am sympathetic to that idea, because it does make sense that if the nature of reality is change, and if there is a purpose, a point, a meaning in living, that you don't get to just check out of reality at the point where you've matured spiritually. So I kind of believe that this is something that everyone has to do to some degree in order to grow. And I think it's supposed to be that way. I don't think it's I think that is, in some ways, what it means to be alive, is to be changing. So I think I've covered what incarnation is, why you do it, and I guess I'll summarize it very simply. So what incarnation is? Incarnation is lowering of some of your inner world energy, your subjective energy inside your soul, into the objective world in order to form an attachment to a physical body so that you may share the world with other people and so that you can grow as a soul. And then the purpose of being alive is to reestablish the connection between your physical body and your divine inner soul. And that when this is done properly, the soul is nourished by life and is refilled so that the person, when they return to that higher plane after death, that they have lots of time there and freedom of choice and ability to do things. Because if they are empty, there's not much there for them. But if they are full, then there's much that they can do. And that is the cycle. It goes, you go up and then you go back down. You come down, then you go back up. Okay? And the purpose of this is to be alive. It's to participate in reality, to share it with other people. So it is fundamentally a selfless thing, something you do because you wish to participate in the great game of life. And I think that's all I got to say right now.